So it's an absolute honor to meet you today.
Oh,
It's
goodness.
your impact on my life is pretty significant because watching Star Trek when I was a kid, it was something that my dad shared with his dad, and then he shared it
No
with me.
kidding. Wow.
And it's, always been a bigger fan of the original series than anything, but I think it was uh when I was in, I think it was middle school, that the Tech War books came out, and I started going through all of those. And then, it was listening to your music, and then everything. It's just like every phase of my life, there's been this William Shatner milestone tied to it.
Wow.
And watching this documentary, I was expecting it to be like a conventional documentary where it's going to dive into childhood, adulthood, like the whole journey, but it was so different. And I wanted to start by asking you, was the idea to tell this the way that it is, where did that come from?
My recollection of what we did was I just started talking. He may have asked a question, but I, over the years, have identified a number of ideas and concepts. And so I'm somewhat adept at pulling it out and talking about it because I've talked about it before. So I started talking and I just kept on talking. Now he would interfere and interrupt and point me in a direction he thought I should go, and I would go there. But to a large extent, it was me talking and Alexander taking from what I said to make what I have heard is a beautiful film. So he's the artist. I'm the kind of gum chewing guy across the bar who won't stop talking.
And the stories are so interesting. And I know that you've talked about different projects that you've been involved with over the years. And there's so many little snippets from films and TV shows and all of these different things that you did. And there's moments in this where I thought that maybe you were going to dive into more about one thing or another. Like I always go back to, I randomly pull out the fact that, there's a movie that was made in Esperanto and William Shatner was in it.
Right.
And I would always wanted to know, is that something, do you still know the Esperanto? Is this something that you can still pull out and talk in?
Oh no, I did it all phonetically.
Did you?
Leslie Stevens was the producer director, and he wrote it in English and asked me to be in it. And I thought, no, it's a good, wonderful, basic kind of good versus evil basic play. So I said yes. And shortly before filming, he says, "We're going to do it in Esperanto." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, he explained Esperanto." I said, "Well, why would you want to do that?" And he said, "Well, there's 17 million people who speak Esperanto. They'll all come and see it." Oh. What he didn't realize, nor did I, that there were three in New York and two in Cleveland and one in Chicago. So the Esperanto surge wasn't there. But in a way, the primitiveness of those German Greek words, and the Latin too, for that matter, made a kind of guttural. It seemed to fit the film,
Mm.
and I only was amused sometime later when I went to the Cannes Film Festival. Um, we're walking up the stairs, whoever else was in the cast, walking up the stairs to the film. And over about 20 yards over was another group of people walking up the stairs at the same time. That's weird. They're taking our thunder. Who's that? And they said, those are the French voiceover actors. So there was another whole cast going up to receive whatever they gave us.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And something else that it really struck me is when you were talking about the final scene in Star Trek Generations, the death scene, and how you had wished you could have had one more take to play it a little bit differently. I remember seeing that film in theaters. I had bought my own ticket, went to go see it as one of the first movies that I went without anybody else, just went there, sat down, and I cried like a baby in that scene. But the spin that you explained there about how you would have said those final two words differently blew me away. And Do you think, had you, because I know you wrote books that carried on the character and you've changed the story over the years, do you think that the fan base would have appreciated that change in the scene as much as you would have?
Everybody can say hello. Jostled. Say hello, you're on camera, say hello. But then if the director says, say hello, hello, now say hello to somebody you hate. That requires you to think a bit about. So when you get into those subtleties of good and bad and admiration and fear and a mixture, if you as an actor can portray not just oh my God, but oh my God, a variety of things that people would feel at that kind of moment, it becomes sort of like a diadem. It becomes something very precious. People, do you remember that moment? And the actor had thought it out and planned it and was able to do it by taking a breath and willing those elements, emotional elements in your head to come together to allow your face to say what your voice was saying and your brain was saying. It's acting at a very complex way, I guess, trying to infuse not just what the words are saying, but what does the character really feel about the words he's saying. And generally, unless you say, I hate you, that's singular. But I hate you, but I don't want to kill you, is complex. And to try and do that is reaching for the stars.
The thing that I think watching this film, I knew it was going to be different than anything that I was expecting is just from that prologue in the beginning where you're talking about that connection that nature has, that massive connection everywhere. And then that feels very different from a comment you make later where you say, like, your impact is very different than how a lot of fans view it. But kind of going back to what I said at the beginning, all of the milestones in my life that I can connect back to Star Trek and to characters like Denny Crane and all of those different things. There is that connection there. There is that massive network that even if it's not direct, it exists out there. So do you feel when you interact with fans, there's a lot of things in the media today about toxic fans and how they just are not great. But when you interact with fans in person from any of the work that you've done, does it feel predominantly positive to you? Is it more good than
Absolutely.
bad?
Absolutely. When I go out to those Comic Cons, the reason I go is that hour with me and the audience. And generally, what happens is an interchange between the audience and the performer that wasn't expected, because I'm there asking the person who's asking a question, why are you asking that question? Or, what's your background? What did you do? So there becomes a dialogue rather than saying, oh yeah, I did Midnight Nightmare 47. Yeah, I like them. It's, do you have nightmares? What are your nightmares? Kind of thing. So it's a little
And
more complex than just being there.
right. And everybody immediately will associate you with key roles. And I mean, even on the poster for the film, we've got some of the most recognizable roles that you've had in your career. For yourself, outside of Captain Kirk and Denny Crane, out of the non-iconic roles that you've had, is there a favorite, one that stands out more than the rest for you?
Oh, well, I was trying to run through. Was it a little for the Rolodex? I did a Broadway play on live television with George C. Scott directed it.
Hmm.
And the reason I remember that was because I was playing a scene as a interrogator, and I was saying, "Oh, what do you think about it? And why don't you?" And George came up afterwards and said, I played that role for a year and a half on Broadway, and during the first 6 months, I did what you were doing, but then I gradually got to feeling sorry for this guy as I'm asking the questions. Wow, that's a great directorial concept. And so that's the way I performed it, where it was difficult to ask these terrible questions and made it much more complex. Looking back at that was that was a play because it was live television, and to work with those people who were all terrific, and to come out smelling like a rose, it was a fun project.
For all of the Star Trek that's been around, I remember for a long time, I would religiously watch the original series. I'd watch all the movies, and every single one of the movies holds a special place for me. And I think that aside from the most iconic moments like in Wrath of Khan and all of those, the one that stands out that I think of pretty much on a daily basis is the opening scene from Star Trek V, the camping scene. That entire sequence is just one that the connection between the characters, it's not a big space battle, it's not anything political, it's just these three friends that are spending time together.
Yeah,
Do moments like that stick out for you from all of the
yeah,
Star Trek you've done?
absolutely. Just row, row, row your boat, and I mean, it was just totally different from anything we've done, and actually, I never shot it exactly how I wanted. It's pretty straight on, and I had other more artistic shots planned, but no time. So I shot it pretty much straight on. But the concept, I've forgotten whose concept it was to sing the song. It might have been the writers, might have been mine. But just something to bring us together prior to going off on our journey, which in my mind was going to split us apart.
It's amazing. And it's been an absolute treat getting to talk to you. I love the documentary. It's been an honor. Thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much, my dear.
That's the story of my life. It's the search for love, symmetry, and passion. That curiosity is what keeps us alive.